Hi, and welcome to our Strong Talks with Zana Morris, founder of Strong Nutrients, who will be joining us in just a moment. And today we're going to be talking about sleep, how much we need, how to get a good night's sleep, any support we can use, such as supplements or sleep aids. And Zana's going to be talking about how to get into some good habits before bedtime. So let me just accept. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I fear my internet is slightly dodgy today, so I do apologise if there's any stuttering.
So far, so good on this side.
Good, that's all right then. So I've just done a little introduction that today we're going to really be talking all about sleep. So how much we need, why we need it, and any advice on how to get a good night's sleep, little tips that you might have, or supplements that we can take, and nutrition that will support us in that good night's sleep. So my first question is sort of really, why do we need sleep? Why is it so important for our bodies, particularly as we get older or as we go through different stages such as menopause, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm sure there's books written on this subject. So this is obviously going to be a very, very short version. I'm dealing, if you think, all the time with clients when it comes to training and protecting lean body mass, so muscle tissue, if you like. And one of the biggest reasons we age is we lose the lean body mass.
Yeah.
We lose the protein out of everything. Sleep is where we recover it.
Right.
It's why I'm not saying anyone out there wants to be a bodybuilder, but weirdly, as we age, we really do. We want to build our bodies as such. So in a funny way, sleep is one of the biggest anti-aging things we can do, within reason, obviously, because that's when the hormonal balance shifts. We go into repair mode. We push the protein back into everything, quite frankly, even into the bones. So it helps improve the bone density too while we're sleeping. And so the whole body is recovering, from the brain right down to your toenails. Everything is recovering, replenishing, rebuilding. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, we all know this, the difference it makes in our brain functioning, on our mood, blood sugar levels, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of benefits. There's an insulin stabilization, if you like, while we sleep, which helps the body lose fat or keep the belly fat down. There's a number of things that happen while we sleep. So we could go on a very long time, but my short version from what I do for a living, which is mostly trying to get people into the best shape they can be,
Yeah.
from a health point of view, immunity, everything, the whole body system gets a chance to reboot and recharge.
And I guess it really does set you up for the day ahead, because like you say, if so for me in particular, if I've had a really bad night's sleep, I'm terrible at, in the morning I'll be like, oh, with a cup of tea I'll have a really big sugar, because I feel like I need something to kind of kick
Yes,
me if I've not had that good night's sleep.
yes,
Someone else actually has commented that they use our Magnesium Rocks and they sleep like a baby. And I think that I was saying to you yesterday, that's very much I've always thought I slept quite well. I can always go to sleep because I'm exhausted. But it wasn't until I took Magnesium Rocks that I sleep deeper.
yes,
It
yes.
like just goes, and then that's it, and I wake up in the morning. So it's yeah, well, I mean, we'll come on to why Magnesium Rocks and perhaps some of the other supplements work so well, but it really does give you that lovely deep sleep, which
Yeah.
is really nice. So people, it's always being said you have to have 8 hours sleep. Do you have to have 8 hours sleep?
So I think some people do. I think I function best on 8 hours. But oh my gosh, I know people who are now in their late 70s who all their lives have only ever really had 4 or 5 hours. And oh my gosh, do they function well? And are they as healthy as anyone I know at that age? If I was as healthy as they were, I'd be happy at that age.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a blanket, everyone needs it at all. And I mean, personally, I can function quite well in 6 hours. I just feel my best when I get more between 7 to 8. I think it's individual.
Yeah.
things about how much stress is going on, how much you wear and tear your body during the day, meditation. There used to be a thing, and I don't know the science behind this, so I don't know how scientific what I'm about to say this is, but we were told years ago, I studied yoga and taught yoga, that your 20 minutes of meditation could almost be the equivalent of 3 to 4 hours of sleep. Now, I don't know if that's true, but certainly when you can get the brain, almost like the brain waves, to calm down, that has a rejuvenation or replenishing effect as well.
So it's just resting. It's not necessarily sleep, it's resting of the
It's like
mind
the
and the body.
mental rest and calm. So I don't believe that everyone needs 8 hours. I think some of us do, and I'm putting myself in that bracket. I function best at 8.
Yeah, I find it very sort of, because it's always been said you need 8 hours. I find myself, if I'm going to bed and I know I won't get 8, I already think I'm having a bad night's sleep and I'm tired,
Yeah.
even though I might not necessarily need those 8 hours. So I think it's something that we always think we have to have, but actually, if we just take it that so long as we have a good, restful night's sleep, then
Yes,
that's what's best for us.
it's very interesting, and we're probably going to touch on this later. It's very interesting when people change their nutrition and diets around. I find some clients can suddenly function super well on just 6 hours, but they get 6 really good hours. And that works just as well as for them as the 8 not quite so good. So the depth of sleep, I think, plays a big part.
Definitely. So what happens to our bodies if we don't have enough sleep? What's the reaction?
Yes, what's the downside? What's the downside? I mean, in the short term, I think we all kind of know the downside a bit. We don't tend to be for most, don't tend to be in as good a mood. It's almost like the body didn't recover fully, so you're not driving off all cylinders in the same way. From a physiological point of view, from a shape point of view, again, this is quite fascinating for me, given the line of work I'm in. Because I heard this, when I was in my early 20s training, you heard all this, but I never quite believed it, if I'm being honest. Now, there's some people who are big into their training who will believe this from when they first heard it. This was just me. I didn't believe, quite frankly, as to the importance of it for the recovery of lean body mass and helping keep fat levels down, which seems totally counterintuitive. I used to think, surely if I'm up all hours at night, I'm burning off more calories, so therefore I must lose more. And it doesn't necessarily work that way. It can, to a point, but after a while, there's this whole hormonal balance that occurs when we sleep. We naturally release more growth hormone, which is the hormone that pushes protein back into everything. It's why teenagers sleep so much. They're growing, so the body's recovering, building, growing. And that seems to have a knock-on effect with insulin, which is the hormone that can help us put on belly fat, quite frankly. So if the insulin's high, we're going to gain fat around the middle. And if that stabilizes and we can keep that steady and low, we tend not to have fat around the middle or tend to lose it much more easily. So if you're not getting enough sleep, it's a fast way, I think, particularly as we get older, to put on weight around the middle, around the belly, around the back, much, much more quickly. And quite frankly, to get weaker. You won't rebuild the lean body mass. And I'm always saying this, everyone will have heard this, apologies for those of you who have heard this about 100 times, we're apparently losing about half a pound of muscle a year from the age of 30. And we're recovering that primarily when we sleep. So you really want to get that recovery back, make the most of it, if at all possible. So in other words, if we don't get enough sleep, amongst other things, as I said, mood and all the rest will be affected. But amongst other things, immunity, I think, will be affected. But equally, so too will your strength, your stamina, and you're more likely to start putting on weight around the middle.
Yeah. So it's almost all the things that you do in the day that you're actively doing, your nutrition, your exercise, that in order to keep that going and get the most benefits, you've then got to have the good night's sleep as well. You're not just lying down thinking nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening. That's when everything's happening. It all happens. My favorite phrase was mind the gap when it came to training and people overtraining. It's the gap between the training that really counts. It's the gap between the eating that really counts. Your body is doing so much when you're not looking. We think in our heads we have to do it as in kind of drive ourselves. But actually, when you stop, that gives your body almost breathing space to get on with its job.
Definitely.
And it's interfering.
The sleep, so we sort of touched on some of it, but sleep can be affected by so many things that we have going on. Obviously, menopause, stress, that sort of thing. Even not winding down properly before you go to bed. All of that can just trigger a bad night's sleep. So, what do you say about, say, like menopause? What's your thoughts on sleep being disturbed in menopause?
Oh, it does. It does. I wish it didn't, but it does. It's interesting though. This is my opinion from my experience working with, well, quite frankly, women of a certain age, which would include me. Anyone from their late 30s onwards, I believe we need a lot more magnesium than perhaps we may have needed prior to that. And that's why it helps you sleep. Vitamins and minerals only make a difference if you need them. They're not like drugs where you're just adding something on top and artificially causing a reaction. Your body's using that vitamin or mineral in a reaction that it's required. So in other words, if you fall asleep better by taking magnesium, your body was low in it. Simply put, it's no more complicated than that. During that whole mix of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, it really does seem to throw sleep patterns quite a bit for more than one reason, I suspect. One of the things that seems to happen is the estrogen levels drop, is our insulin levels seem to go up a little bit. Now that has a knock-on effect on sleep. Progesterone is an interesting one. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm just I play along the edges of these because in my field with the nutrition, the training, it influences it. And you're always looking for results, so you want to understand a bit of it. Progesterone's interesting because that's a hormone that helps us sleep. And it gets you, and again, it's one that can drop with, like, as all these steroid hormones fluctuate during perimenopause. So when these kind of drop or fluctuate or go up or down, it does have an incredible knock-on effect on sleep, an incredible one. That magnesium seems to get used up more during perimenopause and menopause, and it's a mineral we're going to go into shortly that helps the body regulate melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us sleep. So I think there's 3 or 4 factors going on, from the blood sugar levels connected with the insulin, from the progesterone levels dropping, from the magnesium really being used up very quickly for some reason. It does make magnesium's involved with estrogen, avoiding it being recycled and getting it excreted and so on and so forth. So I think there's 3 or 4 reasons, but our sleep patterns definitely seem to take a bit of a nosedive during that period.
And we might as well go on to the supplements whilst we're touching upon them. So is Magnesium Rocks, would you say that's the main one for us to take for sleep?
It's interesting. It's a great question. It's definitely the most popular, and it definitely has a big impact. And as you rightfully said, for you, it made the difference in a deep sleep and not.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Personally, I prefer Chill Pill. As in, if you said I could only have one, I'd be torn.
Right.
So I'll go into them one at a time. So magnesium, oh gosh, it's a mineral that it's involved with it helps you use your calcium properly, get it into the bone, so to speak. So that becomes super important during perimenopause and menopause, because as estrogen levels drop, the uptake, the utilization of the calcium, if you will, goes down. So everything you can do to help get the body to get it into it makes a difference. And calcium is something that also helps sleep, by the way. The utilization of it helps the body calm and relax.
Right.
Magnesium helps muscle relax. It's why we have magnesium, salt baths to kind of take out the tension out of the muscle, and it does work. It helps to regulate melatonin, which is the hormone that puts us to sleep, if you like, and it helps reduce cortisol, which is the hormone that's like the coffee shot that wakes us up. It's the stress hormone. And as an aside, cortisol, we need our progesterone, which is another hormone that helps us sleep, which is another hormone that reduces during perimenopause and menopause. The body uses progesterone as an ingredient to make cortisol. So high cortisol levels can reduce your progesterone too. So you've got a double effect going on there. So the magnesium can help the cortisol levels drop, which I'm going to suspect by default indirectly may help protect those precious progesterone stores. Is sort of side. It helps regulate blood sugar levels. Again, the blood sugar going too high can cause you to wake in the middle of the night, again connected to insulin and so on and so forth. So it seems to have an incredible knock-on effect. And one of the things I just touched upon there is recycled estrogen. So when we have the estrogen kind of hitting through the system, you want to get it out of the body. You don't want the body then to reuse it. Apparently, it's not very good if we have to reuse it, if you like. And magnesium helps the body eliminate it and get it out. It has got a lot of really nice benefits, really nice benefits. So it is an important mineral, and it does seem to make a very, very big difference.
Yeah.
Very big. Chill pill, the B5, on the other hand, that's kind of I think it might be my favorite. I think.
You can't pick a favorite. It's like a favorite
I'm not
child.
I'm not allowed to have a favorite. It leans into it. Dare I say. Vitamin B5, when I studied nutrition going back nearly, 30 years ago now, we called it the happy vitamin because of its impact on mood. And I worked in the west of Ireland for a few years, and oh my gosh, over there, and I'm sure a lot of it related to weather and everything else, but there was a very, very high proportion, high number of people on antidepressants in that area, just because of the impact for so many reasons. And I'm sure this is the same worldwide. So it's not picking on specific areas, it's just I happen to be there. And what I noticed certainly with the B5, and I'm not recommending and replace anything else, just to be very clear, but it did seem to have a very big impact on mood, on just feeling more yourself, and lighter and brighter. But what it really does is it supports the adrenals. So it's another one that seems to indirectly help get the cortisol levels down. And I find if I don't take it before I go to bed, I have what I call airplane sleep, which is I sleep, but probably a bit like what you were saying. I don't quite drop deeply.
Yeah.
It's not quite as restful. Whereas when I do, I just sleep what I would consider more normal. It's more of a proper night's sleep. Now, I do put it down to a little bit because I think it has a lovely impact on cortisol levels. And I've said this to you when we were chatting. I do like my coffee. I'm not going to sit here and say everyone should drink coffee. I really don't think we probably should. I don't get what all the research says. I mean, there's lots of research saying it is very healthy. People seem to live longer that drink it. And I like the idea of that. I'm just not sure the caffeine hit on our adrenal glands is very beneficial. I think we live stressful enough lives without adding caffeine to food, but I do. And in my opinion with it, if you're going to do things like that to ourselves, which I do, I think the likes of the B5 become very, very helpful to counteract it. Because to me, caffeine is a bit like a cortisol shot. The cortisol is designed to wake us up. It's designed to get us up and going when we have to fight or flight, when we have to fight or run. In the same way, we might have a caffeine, like a little shot of espresso before we go to the gym to give ourselves a hit. Cortisol does that too. And I think caffeine just acts a bit too much like cortisol. So anything you can do, hence my love, I think, for the B5 and the chill pill, to sort of stabilize it and rebalance, if you like, becomes very, very helpful. So my favorite is the B5.
Okay. And we have them as a sleep stack as well at Strong Nutrients. So why together? Why are they so powerful?
Why do they work? Because they're working differently. This is a big question, and gosh, do I understand it? I really do. When I sort of fine-tuned, edited, if you like, the Strong Nutrients down to what I felt were the main ones. The aim very much was not to be overlapping too much. Now, magnesium does one thing over here. It's a mineral. B5 does another thing over here. They have lots of different benefits. Like B5 also helps with digestion. It helps with the breakdown of the carbohydrates, proteins, and the fats. So it's involved with digestion too. It helps release energy from cells, so to speak. So it's got a lot of other benefits. So they work differently. But sort of together then they can work quite, I think, synergistically. So you just get even more of an impact. So, for example, my B5 wouldn't prevent me getting cramps. Why do we get cramps? You know, the way you might feel your calf cramping or restless legs, for example. One of the reasons is possibly just because the calcium levels might be too high in the body. The body's not utilizing it properly. You're low in magnesium, which helps muscle relax. And the minute you take the magnesium in, that goes away. It's really a sign you're low in magnesium. So B5 is not going to cover that for me. The chill pill won't do that. So the combination just targets it from different angles. And I think just completes it.
Well, I'm going to start taking the chill pill as well. What I do find with the magnesium is that I do have some nights where I actually don't move from the spot I fall asleep in. I literally wake up in the same position, almost aching a bit because I don't think I've moved for sort of 7 hours. So that's why, for me, it really does. And when I ran out and didn't have it, I really noticed the difference
Yes.
for this. So,
Yeah.
but I should combine the chill pill and see how it goes. Now, you mentioned caffeine because I also like a coffee, but I only ever drink coffee in the mornings. So I thought, oh, well, that's not going to affect me.
Yeah.
I've got friends and family that, or we won't have a tea or coffee past 4 p.m. But I didn't realize even having it in the morning, it's still in your system
Well,
affecting you for sleep.
it can be. It can take more than 12 hours for the body to get rid of it.
Right.
So it really can. And if you think of it in the long term, if you're doing it every morning, so you're giving your adrenals maybe just a little punch every morning, I might say unnecessarily. I mean, as I said, I'm sitting here as someone who drinks
Yeah.
coffee, and you might say, why? Because I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite frankly, I do. I do. And I don't think it's that bad for us. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't do it. Now, quite frankly, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But it's like a little niggle you're giving your
Yeah.
adrenals, which is probably all very well if the rest of your life is very calm.
Hmm.
But I don't know many people who the rest of their life is very calm,
No.
particularly when we get to this perimenopause stage. For some reason, we seem to match perimenopause with doing way, way, way more in our lives than we probably ever did previously. Now, that may not go for all, but most people I know, if I ask them if they were to do exactly what they're doing now in terms of possibly family, in terms of possible work, and so on
Mhm.
and so forth. If they were to do all of that now when they were in their mid-20s, would they have coped? And they all laugh and go, not a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
So we've just unloaded, not offloaded, unloaded more and more stuff at a
Yeah.
time in life when our hormones are already beginning to shift and turn.
Yeah.
So cortisol levels can be, I think, slightly high to begin
Mhm.
with, and then we add the coffee to that. So I just think that little niggle every day, even if it is first thing in the morning. Not like you, I don't tend to drink it past maybe 10 o'clock,
Mhm.
if even that. But I still think I'm giving a little niggle to my adrenals
Yeah.
every day. So I like to just sort of gently counteract
Mhm.
that every day. And again, for me, with the B5, with the magnesium, if you don't notice any difference taking it, then you probably didn't need it. If you do
Yeah.
notice the difference taking it or not taking it, as the case may be, then that's a sign your body needs it, in my opinion, because as I said, they're natural vitamins and minerals. They're not like a herb or a plant that you're taking to give an extra artificial hit.
Mhm.
Your body's using it in a function to work properly.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a little
Sure.
ingredient.
And is there any, from a nutritional point of view, are there any sort of meals in the evening or anything that we have before bedtime that we should be loading up on in order to help us sleep? I know
Together,
we
yes,
touched upon
things to take,
protein
things to
last week.
avoid. Yes, 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 yes. Great question. So there's two ways of looking at this. The first, no, I'm going to say this. I don't think there's going to be anyone listening who doesn't know what I'm about to say next, but I'll say it anyway. Sugar can obviously cause this sort of roller
Mhm.
coaster. So too much sugar in the evening, you get that sugar spike. The body has to release the insulin to get it out. Then you get a dip, and that all is going to throw your sleep well off.
Mhm.
Alcohol the same, partly because of the alcohol, but also partly because of the sugar in the alcoholic drink.
Mhm.
So that will do the same. So I think we all know that caffeine at night. Oh my gosh, it's changed a little bit in the last few years, but if you think about this, we do such crazy things to ourselves when we run away with the idea of this is good for us. Dark chocolate became a big thing that everyone needed to be taking, particularly women of a certain age. Again, I'm putting me in that bracket.
Healthy chocolate. That's why it was like a healthy
It
chocolate.
was a healthy chocolate, and in essence, it is.
Yeah.
It actually is. But the amount of women, I'm sorry, I'm picking on us women. Men did it too, just to be clear. But the amount of us that took a couple of squares after the evening meal, but that's a caffeine hit.
Yeah.
And if already the perimenopause or menopause is affecting the sleep, and now you're doing a little caffeine hit, it may not be much, but it's enough.
Yeah.
Then you're just kind of dragging it on further. So stimulants, in essence, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, or they're just not going to work.
Yeah.
On the flip side,
Mhm.
things that can help. Now, funnily enough, I'm talking about stimulants and sugars and more pure sugar. Carbohydrate foods, like the starchy, denser foods like for, you know, the potatoes or the rice or the pasta, again, if not crazy amounts all the time, weirdly could help.
Right. Okay.
They can, fun enough, help sleep. They can have a knock-on effect that can be beneficial in moderation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Calcium-rich products can help because calcium can help the body relax.
Okay.
Tryptophan is a natural amino acid that's found in certain foods like nuts and the likes, which can also help. So there's certain foods that can actually help the body calm. Which goes into things like so protein can be useful, but like the protein shake for some can be useful. Now, not if it's a very big, heavy one, but a small amount of it could kind of be useful. Weirdly, bananas and things, because of what they're quite high in, can be useful.
Yeah.
So there's a few foods that can be beneficial.
Okay.
It can be beneficial. But certainly reducing the obvious, the stimulants, the drugs, if you like, which include alcohol, caffeine, and dare I say even sugar. They will never help. They will never help.
Okay, so the idea of having a warm milk with a sugar,
yes,
which is what I always had as a child.
The warm milk isn't a bad idea.
Fine, but not with the sugar.
Yeah, not with the sugar, unfortunately. The warm milk isn't a bad idea.
Yeah,
it could actually help.
What about exercising close to bedtime or in the evening? Does that have a
That's a really good question. There used to be a general rule of thumb. Now, I didn't necessarily buy into this, but there used to be a general rule of thumb, which was just you shouldn't do much exercise in the evening because that'll wake you up. And then more recently, in the research on the high intensity exercise, they found actually with short high intensity exercise, a few hours before you go to bed could actually be beneficial. And I'm saying this next bit, I think it's because it uses up all those stress hormones and then your body goes into that recovery repair mode, which is a little bit of what they were saying in the research about you go into that sort of calm repair mode, and that can actually help sleep. So it wasn't necessarily saying if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, do that at 9:30. It was more saying if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, you might get away with it at 6 or 7 in the evening. I think you need to know your own rhythm. I do think a certain amount can help the body, the cortisol levels go down.
Okay.
So I think it's worth figuring yourself out. I think different people have different circadian rhythms, which means they have different cycles with the way the hormones go up and down during the day. And what works for one person may or may not work for another. But don't assume exercise before bed will keep you awake. For some, it's actually quite useful, at least in the second half of the day. Personally, and I do this more because it just works better for me because time-wise, because I've got clients in the morning. So for me to train first thing in the morning, the first thing becomes very early. So I've got a rhythm now where I train in the afternoon, and my favorite time to train is now become between 3 and 4 p.m. And I think that helps my sleep, as my energy through the evening and my sleep. I find that works very, very well.
I like to work out at about 6 o'clock, 6:30. That's my favorite time when I've finished my work and everything, and I can just go for it. And then my body then relaxes before bed. So I find it. Someone has asked, what about turmeric in a hot drink before bed?
Yes, I can see the question. Hello, Yvonne. Yes, hello. I think that's not a bad thing at all. It's an anti-inflammatory. Anything like that should help the body calm. I think so.
And what about melatonin? Lots of people are taking tablets where they can get them these days anyway.
Yes. We don't get them, do we?
Not over here.
Melatonin, yes. But with melatonin, I'd be inclined to take a few steps first before I would go to melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone. So you're taking a hormone at that point. And in theory, in an ideal world, your body should be producing enough of its own. So where we said, for example, magnesium helps the body regulate melatonin, it might be worth considering you'll own magnesium rather than the melatonin itself. If that makes sense. So I would look for, this would be the order of play I would go in. I would go magnesium, I would go chill pill first, see if you need it. I would go the other more natural remedies first. I'm not against taking melatonin, but I am wary. I'm uncertain if you take a hormone too regularly, how much it impacts your body's natural production of its own.
Right, okay.
So I won't say it does categorically. I think taking these things once every so often is no harm whatsoever. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to become reliant on them, if you can avoid it.
Okay. All right. Someone has asked if our products, Chill Pill and Magnesium Rocks, are good for
Yes,
men too.
yes, 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 and yes.
That's good to know. And any other sort of healthy sleep habits that you would recommend in the
Oh,
lead up to bedtime?
I'm just seeing Deborah's question here. How does the Amino Slim fit in with taking magnesium and the B? Honestly, actually, surprisingly well.
Mm.
The Amino Slim, for those of you who don't know it, is one that most will be taking for the fat loss, for helping stabilize insulin. Weirdly, or it's support in that, I should say, just to be clear. This is the interesting thing about the Amino Slim. So I touched on briefly, when we sleep, there's a hormonal shift, if you like. Now, this happens provided you didn't have a sugar drink before you go to bed, just to be clear. The body naturally releases growth hormone and some of those growth hormones as such that help the body repair effectively, and seems to flatline or stabilize at least blood sugar levels and insulin, which is great for shape. You firm up and you lose fat, and that happens, assuming that process is happening as it should happen, everybody, when we sleep. It happens better in our 20s. It doesn't happen as well as we age, but it still
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
High intensity training has a very similar impact on those hormones. So when you do a sprint, you have a natural hormone like growth hormone release. It seems to suppress the insulin. It's why sprinters tend to have abs. Marathon runners don't always.
Right.
So it's that hormonal impact. The Amino Slim, the L-ornithine, which is an amino acid, part of a protein in it, seems to support that process when you sleep and when you do the high intensity training. So it gets in behind the same process. Weirdly, that process helps sleep. So there's a lot of the research on the L-ornithine and Amino Slim, people found they slept better, they slept more deeply. And this is the bit I do like, and this does happen. You tend to wake up brighter. You tend to wake up more alert.
Okay.
So you may not need as much sleep, and I say may. I'm not saying you definitely won't, but we've obviously, as you know now, done those sleep stacks with the strong nutrients,
Yeah.
and we've got the Sleep Stack Plus, which includes the Amino Slim for that reason. And one of the ladies that works with us takes Amino Slim for sleep.
Yeah.
Help it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was I going to say? So with Amino Slim, you have to have the 2.5 hour break from any food or drink before you take it before bed. But generally, would you advise, even if you weren't taking Amino Slim, that you didn't have anything to eat for 2.5 hours before?
If possible,
Mhm.
yes. Now, I really do emphasize if possible. And that's again because of that natural
Yeah.
hormonal hit that occurs when you sleep. So if you have eaten too close, you can affect that,
Right. Okay.
which then you won't get all that benefit, and that could affect the sleep a little bit. I don't know if it's always possible, because so many, certainly of the clients I speak to, they can work until quite late.
Yeah.
And by the time they get home and get to eat, so I would sooner you
Yeah.
ate
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
didn't eat.
But
But yes, if
but
possible,
trying to
even
allow a break in between food and bed is advisable.
I think so. I think you get your best results from muscle recovery, and it's a bit like that intermittent fasting gap. If you kind of just get it the couple of hours before bed and then get it the other side,
Yeah.
I think that works very, very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And any sort of good habits before bed, screen time, aromatherapy, scents, anything like that? What's
All
your
of
thoughts
that.
on this?
I was thinking this the other day. And apologies to Netflix and Prime and all those other video streaming channels. I wonder how much they have thrown our sleep patterns out the window. We always blame our phones, but oh my gosh, honestly, I would say about not probably 2 out of 3 clients. My conversation is, can they put
Yeah.
away?
Yeah.
Because it's not so much that they aren't sleeping; they're not getting to bed early enough because they're just watching the
Just
next
one more.
episode.
Just one more.
Just one
Just
more.
one more.
When we were all kids, we're going to sound old here now, but that wasn't an option. You
It
you
wasn't.
you can just keep watching, and I put my hands up for occasionally doing it too.
Yeah.
It's not like I
Yeah.
don't. And I do wonder how much that eats into the precious sleep hours
Mm.
that really didn't exist before. And then, of course, we do have the phones, we do have the screen time, and they say all that artificial light, that the impact that that has on our sleep. And I think it really can.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to not allow yourself go into fight or flight, I think that's really it.
Mm.
So you were mentioning this, and I thought this is a very valid point.
Yeah.
There's the equivalent of locking the doors before you go to sleep and making sure everything's shut down, and that's fair enough. So in other words, you may need to check some
I
things.
do. I
No,
just have to check my phone just to make sure nothing else has cropped up or arisen. And then once I know it's okay, I find I can sleep
you can
better.
relax.
Whereas if
But
I hadn't checked it for a couple of hours, I'd have that sort of, oh, what if something's happened?
well, that if that helps,
Yeah.
then that's worth doing. If that allows you go right
Yeah.
now, I'm closing the door, I'm done.
Yeah.
But apart from that, what you don't want is the cortisol levels rising.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which is then that's useless. I find it entertaining to watch the news of countries I'm not
Yeah.
in, because then it doesn't bother me. And I
Thank you.
don't say do that before bed. I don't mean that, but what I mean is if you're
Yeah.
reading something that just is like a story that's not really
Yeah.
impacting you, then you can fall asleep.
Yeah.
So, but if you're watching or engaged in something that's pulling you in too much,
Yeah.
then that
Yeah.
doesn't work. That won't work. Your cortisol will go up, and now your body's prepared for a fight or run when you're trying to nod off.
Rest. Yeah.
So that makes a difference. And then, as you mentioned, anything aromatherapy was. Now, I don't know enough about them.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from saying the people I do know who do know a lot about them will swear by
Yeah.
their benefit. So
Yeah.
I can't say one or the other, but I suspect there is benefit to that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's all the thing about a dark room. I never believed in a dark room until I actually did it. I thought it doesn't make any difference at all. This come back for years, and then suddenly I did it and realized, oh my gosh, it does.
Yeah, it does make a difference. Well, I've got a little 7-year-old, and she loves a pillow spray. She has to have that before she goes to bed, but she also sleeps with a blue light on in her bedroom. So each to their own, so long as they sleep.
It's exactly that. It really is. It really is. It
Yeah.
really is. Yes.
Definitely. Good. Well, we've answered all questions. So if anyone has any extra questions that they want to ask, then drop us a DM, and we're happy to help. And I'll put up the details of the sleep stacks within this live when I post it as well. So so we can link to those. And next week we are going to be talking about creatine, which I'm excited to understand better. So thank you, Zana, for your
Thank
time.
you very, very much.
I'll
Thank you.
speak to
Thank
you
you.
soon.
You will. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.